You know that person who politely smiles when they get a surprise gift, but you can tell something's off? The one who never seems genuinely excited, just tolerating it? Yeah, that person isn't ungrateful. They're not broken, and they're definitely not trying to ruin your moment. According to psychological research, their brain might just process unexpected events differently than yours. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see surprise gifts and the people who don't love them. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Not liking surprise gifts doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you lack appreciation, and it definitely doesn't mean something's wrong with you. But there is something fascinating happening in the brains of people who prefer knowing what's coming. And once you understand it, you'll never look at gift giving the same way again. Let's start with the obvious question. Why do so many people love surprises? When you receive something unexpected, your brain releases dopamine, the reward chemical, that rush of excitement, that moment of anticipation. It's literally your brain's way of saying, "This is new, pay attention." For many people, this feels amazing. But here's where it gets interesting. People who don't like surprise gifts often have what psychologists call lower novelty-seeking tendencies. Their brains don't get that same dopamine hit from the unexpected. And this isn't a choice. Research suggests it might actually be genetic. A study published in the Journal of Neuroscience found that variations in dopamine receptor genes can predict how someone responds to novelty and surprise. Some people's brains are wired to seek out new experiences, to crave that unexpected rush. Others, their reward system simply doesn't activate the same way. So, when you hand them a surprise gift, you're expecting excitement, but their brain is just processing. Information, no rush, no thrill. Just, okay, this is happening now. Think about that for a moment. The same biological mechanism that makes someone's eyes light up when they see a wrapped box simply doesn't fire for others. It's not a personality flaw. It's neural wiring. But there's more going on than just dopamine. Control plays a huge role in how people experience gifts. For many, a surprise gift feels like a loss of control. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. And now you're expected to react in a specific way. That pressure, that expectation to perform gratitude, it can actually create anxiety. Psychologists call this emotional labor. You're managing not just your own feelings, but the giver's feelings too. And for people who value autonomy, who prefer making their own choices, this doesn't feel like generosity. It feels like obligation. Here's something wild. Studies show that people who dislike surprise gifts often score higher in need for cognition. They prefer thinking through decisions, understanding the reasoning behind them. When something appears unexpectedly, they can't process the logic. Why this gift? Why now? What does it mean? Their brain wants context, and surprise denies them that. It's not that they're ungrateful. It's that their mind is trying to understand something that was never explained. This need for cognitive closure, as researchers call it, means their brain struggles with ambiguity. They want to know the why behind the what, and surprise gifts skip that step entirely. And let's be honest about something else. For some people, not liking surprise gifts is actually tied to past experiences. Maybe they grew up in a household where gifts were used as manipulation. I got you this, so you owe me. Maybe they've received gifts that were clearly inappropriate, things that showed the giver didn't actually know them at all. Or maybe they've been in relationships where surprise gifts were apologies wrapped in paper, ways to avoid actual accountability. For these people, a surprise gift doesn't feel like love. It feels like a trap. The wrapped box isn't a present. It's a test. And they've learned that failing that test has consequences. But here's what's fascinating. Even without trauma or negative experiences, some people simply prefer knowing. It's about preparation. When you know a gift is coming, you can mentally prepare your response. You can think about what to say, how to show appreciation. You can manage your own expectations. But when it's a surprise, you're caught off guard. And for people who value emotional regulation, who like being in control of their reactions. This feels chaotic. Not fun, chaotic. Just chaotic. Their nervous system doesn't like being caught off guard. The sudden shift from expectation to reality requires cognitive processing that feels draining rather than exciting. Research in personality psychology has identified a trait called openness to experience, and it affects how people handle novelty. People high in openness tend to embrace new, unexpected situations. They thrive on variety. People lower in openness, they prefer familiarity, predictability, knowing what to expect. And here's the kicker: neither is better. They're just different approaches to the world. One person's exciting surprise is another person's unwelcome disruption. It's like how some people love roller coasters and others prefer a walk in the park. Both are valid ways to experience the world. Neither is wrong. Now, before you think this is just about being difficult, let's look at what actually makes people feel appreciated. A 2022 study on gift-giving found that recipients consistently report feeling more valued when gifts reflect their actual preferences, not the giver's desire to create a moment. The surprise itself wasn't what mattered. What mattered was being known, being understood. And here's the thing: you can create that understanding without the surprise element. In fact, you might do it better. When you ask someone what they want, when you listen to their hints over months, when you pay attention to the things they mention in passing, that's not less romantic. That's more attentive. People who don't like surprise gifts often deeply appreciate thoughtful gifts. The difference is they want to be part of the process. They want to give input to share what they actually need or want. This isn't less romantic. It's actually more intimate. It requires conversation, listening, paying attention over time. Not a moment of dramatic reveal, but ongoing connection. The gift becomes part of a relationship, not a test of it. And here's what's really interesting. Research shows that when recipients have input, they report higher satisfaction. Not just with the gift, but with the relationship itself. And here's something that sounds contradictory, but makes perfect sense. People who dislike surprise gifts often give amazing gifts themselves because they know how much thought and attention goes into getting it right. They understand that a good gift isn't about the moment of surprise. It's about the months of noticing, the small comments remembered, the understanding of who someone actually is. They don't need the surprise because they've already done the work. They've been paying attention. They've been collecting data. And when they give a gift, it's not about creating a moment. It's about confirming what they already know about you. But wait, it gets weirder. Because there's actually research showing that surprise gifts can backfire, even for people who think they like them. A study from Harvard Business School found that when givers focus on making the moment surprising, they often choose gifts that recipients don't actually want. The giver gets the satisfaction of creating a surprise. The recipient gets something they'll never use. So who is this really for? The research showed that givers overestimate how much recipients value the surprise element and underestimate how much they value getting something they actually want. The giver feels good about the gesture. The recipient feels conflicted. They appreciate the thought, but they're stuck with something they don't need. Let's talk about attachment theory for a moment, because it explains so much. People with secure attachment styles tend to feel comfortable with both giving and receiving. They trust the relationship, so surprise feels safe. But people with anxious or avoidant attachment styles, surprise can trigger different responses. For some, it creates anxiety. What if I react wrong? What if this means something I don't understand? For others, it feels like intrusion, another thing happening to them without their consent. And neither reaction is about the gift itself. It's about how they experience connection and control. Anxiously attached, people often worry about meeting expectations. A surprise gift becomes a performance test. Did I react right? Was my excitement sufficient? Did I show enough gratitude? The gift, which was meant to be a gesture of love, becomes a source of anxiety. Avoidantly attached people, on the other hand, often value independence and autonomy. A surprise gift can feel like an intrusion into their space. an assumption about what they want or need. It's not that they don't care, it's that their brain processes unexpected intimacy as potentially overwhelming. Here's what researchers call the prediction error. Your brain constantly predicts what will happen next. When something unexpected occurs, your brain has to update its model of the world. For some, this is exciting, new information. For others, it's exhausting, another thing to process. Another adjustment to make: people who dislike surprise gifts often have what psychologists call lower cognitive flexibility in emotional contexts. They can adapt, but it takes energy, and surprise gifts demand that energy without consent. It's like being asked to solve a puzzle you didn't know you were going to face. Some people love puzzles. Others just want to know what's going to happen. And let's be honest about the social pressure. Society romanticizes surprise gifts. The proposal, the birthday reveal, the unexpected present. We're taught that surprise equals thoughtfulness, that the best gifts are the ones you never saw coming. Movies show the dramatic reveal as the pinnacle of romance. Social media amplifies this, with videos of surprise reactions. But what if that's just one way of showing love? What if the people who don't like surprises aren't missing out on romance, but just experiencing it differently? Maybe love looks like conversation, not concealment. Maybe it looks like asking, not assuming. Consider the language we use around gifts. It's the thought that counts. But whose thought? The giver's thought about what would make a good moment, or the thought about what the recipient actually needs? We've conflated the gesture with the gift itself. The surprise becomes more important than the item. The reaction becomes more important than the appreciation. And when someone doesn't provide that reaction, when they don't perform surprise correctly, we question their gratitude. But maybe we should be questioning our approach instead. Here's another layer to consider. Cultural differences play a significant role in how people experience gift giving. In some cultures, direct requests for gifts are seen as rude or greedy. In others, being specific about what you want is considered practical and respectful. People who don't like surprise gifts might come from cultural backgrounds where directness is valued over performative surprise. Or they might have grown up in families where gift giving was transactional rather than emotional. The way we experience gifts is deeply shaped by our earliest experiences with receiving them. Let's also talk about the concept of gift receiving anxiety, which psychologists have identified as a real phenomenon. Some people experience genuine stress when receiving gifts, especially unexpected ones. Their heart rate increases, their mind races with worry about whether their reaction will be adequate. They worry about appearing ungrateful. They worry about the social implications of the gift. What does accepting this mean? What does it obligate them to? This isn't just preference. This is a physiological response. Their nervous system literally doesn't handle the uncertainty well. Research in behavioral economics has found that people experience what's called the pain of paying when making purchases. But there's also a pain of receiving. For some people, the cognitive and emotional cost of processing an unexpected gift. This cost isn't just about the item itself. It's about the social navigation required. Do I like this? Should I like this? How do I show I like this? What does this mean about our relationship? All of these questions fire simultaneously when a surprise gift appears. And for some brains, that's overwhelming processing load. And here's something that might surprise you. People who dislike surprise gifts often have higher sensory sensitivity. The sudden appearance of something new, the need to touch and examine it, the expectation to react physically and emotionally, all of this can be overstimulating. Their nervous system processes sensory input more intensely. What feels like excitement to others feels like bombardment to them. It's not that they don't appreciate the gesture. It's that their brain is processing the sensory experience differently at higher volume. Let's also consider the role of memory and anticipation. Research shows that people often derive more happiness from anticipating an experience than from the experience itself. When you know a gift is coming, you get to anticipate it. You get to imagine what it might be. You get to build up positive expectation. But with a surprise gift, that anticipation is compressed into a single moment. The extended period of positive anticipation is lost. For people who savor the build-up, who enjoy the process of looking forward to things, surprise gifts skip over one of the best parts. Here's what's really interesting about gift psychology. Studies have found that the most successful gifts, meaning the ones that recipients actually value and use, are often the least surprising. When givers take the time to understand what someone truly needs, when they pay attention to hints and preferences over time, when they ask questions and listen to the answers, the resulting gift might not be surprising, but it's almost always appreciated more than the dramatic surprise that misses the mark. And let's talk about the burden of the surprise gift. When you receive something unexpected, especially something expensive or significant, there's often an implicit obligation. You now owe gratitude. You might owe reciprocity. You might owe a specific kind of relationship performance. For people who are sensitive to these social obligations, who prefer clear boundaries and straightforward exchanges, this feels heavy. The gift comes with strings attached, even if those strings are invisible, and some people would rather opt out of that entire dynamic. Here's what's really interesting about the social pressure. We've created a culture where the giver's desire for a moment is prioritized over the recipient's actual experience. The giver wants the joy of surprising someone. The recipient becomes a prop in that moment. And when the recipient doesn't play their part, when they don't react with sufficient delight, we judge them. We call them ungrateful. We call them difficult. But what if the problem isn't their reaction? What if the problem is our expectation that they should perform for our satisfaction? Now, I'm not saying surprise gifts are bad. I'm saying they're not universally good. And pretending they are misses the opportunity to actually connect with people in the way that works for them. If you're with someone who doesn't like surprise gifts, that's not a flaw to fix. That's information about how they experience the world. And adapting to that, that's actual thoughtfulness. That's actual love. Love isn't about doing what feels good to you. It's about learning what feels good to them. Here's the part that might change how you see this entirely. People who don't like surprise gifts often have higher self-awareness. They know what they want. They know what they don't want. And they're honest about it. That's not being difficult. That's being clear. And in a world where so many people pretend to be fine with things they're not, that clarity is actually rare. These people aren't ruining the magic. They're inviting a different kind of magic. The magic of being known without games. The magic of relationships where you don't have to guess what someone wants because they've told you. Think about it this way. If someone tells you they don't like surprise gifts and you still give them one, what are you actually doing? You're saying your desire to create a moment is more important than their stated preference. You're saying you know what they should enjoy better than they do. That's not thoughtful. That's arrogant. True thoughtfulness is listening when someone tells you what they need, even when it's different from what you want to give. So, what does all this mean? If you don't like surprise gifts, you're not ungrateful. You're not broken. You're not missing out on some fundamental human experience of joy. Your brain's reward system, your need for control, your attachment style, your cognitive flexibility, they're all calibrated differently, and that's perfectly okay. The next time someone hands you a wrapped box and expects delight, and you feel something else entirely, remember, your reaction is valid, your preferences are real, and you deserve to receive love in the language you actually speak. And if you're someone who loves giving surprise gifts, here's something to consider. The most thoughtful gift you can give someone is the one they actually want, not the one you want to give. Sometimes that means asking. Sometimes that means listening. Sometimes that means letting go of your own desire for a dramatic moment in favor of their desire for peace and predictability. That's not less romantic. That's more respectful. If this resonated with you, you're probably going to love why some people never get excited about their birthday and why that might actually be a sign of emotional maturity. Click one of these videos to find out why you experience celebrations differently than everyone else. And if you want to support these deep dives into the psychology we rarely talk about, hit that join button to become a channel member. I would genuinely appreciate your support.